it is now my enormous pleasure to introduce the leaders of two of the most disproportionately influential companies in our industry, holders of the velvet rope that's getting people into the power and abstraction of the cloud, the manageability and efficiencies of virtualization, being brought together to show you the answer to the question that's been in your mind, driving you mad for the last week now: what is VMforce? To answer that question, please welcome Mark Benioff, Chairman and CEO of Salesforce.com, Paul Maritz, CEO and President of VMware. Gentlemen, your stage.
Welcome, Paul.
It's great to be here, Mark.
It's great to have you here. Welcome to San Francisco.
This is a really amazing day for both of us. I think it's just under a year and a half since you and I met up here in San Francisco and started this discussion that has led to this day today.
Well, it's been an exciting vision, and I'm glad to see this come together, and I think it will be extremely transformational. I think certainly for Salesforce.com customers, and I think for VMware customers too, but really for the whole industry.
I think the great thing about today, it's a great example of getting the best out of two companies.
Absolutely. Terrific. All right. Well, looks like we have an exciting safe harbor statement for everybody.
We can get the safe harbor
there's a clicker there. Oh, we have also we have
okay. I'll get the legalese up here. So you can all read that and enjoy the true beauty of it.
And if you don't have a chance to read it here, it's also on our website. Paul, I'll let you take it from here. Good luck.
Bring you up in just a few minutes. I'm going to start off this morning giving you some context to what you're going to hear about and see today, and Mark is going to greatly elaborate on this. When Mark and I started discussing things nearly 2 years ago now, we found that there were certain things that we fundamentally agreed on. We agreed that IT was drowning in a sea of complexity, that too much of the world's IT budget is being spent on things that don't fundamentally differentiate one enterprise from another, and that we in the IT industry have to deeply internalize that. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of rocks in our future. We have to remove that complexity and lower costs, but even more importantly, we have to speak to what will enable people to do things that are fundamentally more valuable for their organizations. So this is not just about reducing cost, it's about enabling new ways of doing business. And Mark and I fundamentally agree that IT as we know it today needs to be transformed into and accessed as a service. And that's true whether the IT is actually being delivered from computers that live inside the firewall or delivered from computers that live outside the firewall. We have to get people out of the plumbing. We have to get people to the point where they can focus on what is their real business. And to do that, we need to transform the underlying computing architectures. And a lot of what you're going to hear about today is how we are working together to bring about that transformation. Now, journeys are only useful if you can get there from here. So any journey that we lay out has to recognize the reality, which is that most companies in the world basically start with a very large legacy of existing applications that it's just not economically feasible to walk away from those applications. They are reality, they are what running a lot of the businesses today, and we have to address those. So what we at VMware have been doing is building technology that will allow people to become more efficient inside their IT organizations, start to operate more like an IT service provider inside the organization. And this journey starts with virtualization. Virtualization is important because it's one of the only ways that you can actually add flexibility and new functionality in a transparent way to existing applications. So while virtualization has been seen to date as a very important technology to allow you to use your service more efficiently, it's even more important as a technology in terms of allowing you to basically jack up your existing applications, encapsulate them, slide new functionality in underneath them, and eventually start sliding those applications around. So a lot of what we VMware have been doing is being focused on these existing applications, and we not only want to enable customers to run them fundamentally more efficiently in a more agile way inside their organizations, but with time start to have the option to purchase their infrastructure according to a different business model, to rent infrastructure rather than have to provision it themselves, and build a bridge from their private clouds into public infrastructure clouds. So what we have been doing is extending our technology to be relevant not just to the private cloud, but to these public infrastructure clouds as well. And we now have over 2,000 service providers who've signed up to go on this journey with us. Over 500 of them are actually in production today using our software to run their public infrastructure clouds, and the other 1,500 are in the pipeline. Will be coming to market over the coming quarters and months. So we are charting a path for existing applications, and that's what we, VMware, have been about in large part. But you can't only look at existing and legacy applications. You've got to look at, to do fundamentally new things requires new applications. So we have been thinking about basically what happens as we develop new applications that will enable new business models, new processes to come into the world. And a year ago, we at VMware started to think very deeply about this, and we all started to ask, how are new applications being developed? Well, the first thing, as anyone knows who's worked with developers, developers value above everything else productivity. Developers' job is to deliver functionality, and if you can make it easy for them to do that, they will vote with their feet. But they have to do it in a way where those applications can be fast enough, efficient enough to really run in and meet the demands of an enterprise. Those have to be extensible because business needs change over time. So we looked at the technology of what was happening inside enterprises, and we found that there were some very innovative answers to these questions being evolved. In particular, we found that there was a technology in a company called SpringSource. And what had happened is Rod Johnson, who you'll meet in a few minutes, he cut his teeth writing enterprise Java applications and had such a painful experience that when he had to go home to Australia for 6 months, I think it was, or maybe it was a little longer, he took a step backwards and reflected on that experience and said there has to be a better way of doing this. And out of that came this technology which is known as the Spring Programming Framework. And it answers these questions of how to write enterprise applications in a fundamentally easier way with high levels of efficiency, extensibility, and it's based on open source, so it's open to the future. And the result is Java programmers voted with their feet. More than 50% of lines of new Java code today are being written in the context of the Spring Framework. More than 2 million developers now are familiar with and working in the Spring Framework. So this was a great answer to these questions of how do we address developer productivity, high performance, extensibility in an open way. The question comes is this the end of the journey for application development? And as you'll hear from Mark in a few minutes, there are a lot of other interesting questions that need to be answered as well. Firstly, can we take these applications and run them not just in the internal cloud, but in the external cloud as well, in a way where we can trust that those clouds will have the right attributes in terms of reliability, security, longevity to run these applications? Can we integrate that with the emerging world of SaaS-based applications? Increasingly, applications are not islands unto themselves. They have to interact with and extend other sets of functionality embedded in other applications. And more of the world's applications are being delivered in a SaaS-based world. So how can developers write applications that can not only work either in the private cloud or the public cloud, but integrate with and extend SaaS-based applications? And lastly, we're in the midst of a huge transition that Mark will outline. This is not just about traditional, your father's enterprise applications. This is about enterprise applications that will speak to a new generation of people coming into the world who have very, very different expectations about the experience that they expect out of information technology. How do we make sure that these applications can not only run in a trusted cloud, extend SaaS-based applications, but tap into this new environment that we see unfolding? And what's needed then is to take the best of both of these worlds, which is to take the Spring technology, because of its inherent extensibility, make it available to integrate with SaaS functionality, with these new styles of interaction that are coming out, and provide a new trusted cloud in which those applications can run. So it was this vision, this set of questions that Mark and I started to kick around and said, you know what, who better in the world to work on this than our two companies? You've got VMware on the one side, who has leading infrastructure for the enterprise. 95% of the world's Fortune 1000 companies today run VMware infrastructure to underpin their data center operations. We've added the world's leading, most innovative application development technology in the form of the Spring framework. Mark has built up the defining SaaS application. When you say SaaS, that's a synonym for Salesforce.com. But they've not only done that, they have built upon that to make their environment extensible and to tie it into the new coming set of experiences that are coming out of the social computing wave. So when we looked at this and we said what's really needed is to take the best of these environments, put them together in a new synthesis. And I'm hoping that this will be just the first step of a long journey that we can walk on together with Salesforce.com. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Mark and let him continue telling you about what we're hoping to do together.
Thanks, Paul. Great job. Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you, Paul. So, for those of you who know, Paul and I have known each other for over 20 years. And one of the things that I love about our industry, and one of the things that I think is so important about our industry, is that things are constantly changing. 20 years ago, Paul and I were competitors. Paul was at Microsoft, I was at Oracle. Today we're partners. And that's very much the nature of our industry. It's a transient industry. Technology itself is transient. It has an impermanent nature, but it's the relationships that endure. And there's a permanence in the relationships where you could compete one day, partner the next. In our own company, we talk about how you can work for somebody one day, and they could be working for you the next day, and you could be partnered the following day. And that is the real power, and one of the things that I love about our industry is the nature of the relationships. So thank you, Paul. It's great to partner with you. More fun than competing. Actually, competing was also very fun. Okay. What is our mission? Our mission at Salesforce.com is we are a cloud computing driver, catalyst, and evangelist. We have been doing that over the last decade. In case you've missed any of our presentations or haven't heard about Salesforce.com, our job is to bring upon the end of software. We believe there's a fundamental and critical and absolute shift that is occurring right now in our industry. And it is even bigger than the one that occurred when we started Salesforce.com. You see, in about every 10 years or so, there's this huge dramatic shift in the industry. Paul and I know that because we were kind of responsible for helping the world move from mini computers and mainframe computers into client-server computing. That was one huge shift. And then another huge shift was all about the desktop internet computing and kind of what we call Cloud One, the first version of cloud computing. But we believe in cloud, and Paul addressed this, that there's a second huge wave of application development and deployment about to happen. A new generation of cloud computing that's based on new types of devices and new kinds of application frameworks that require higher productivity and a greater ease of use for developers than ever before. And we call that mobile internet computing. And we think that we are all about to embark on this exciting new category. And this is where VMforce is really going to be able to hit its stride. You don't have to look any farther than social networking, which last year started to surpass email in the number of users. How many people here have a social networking account on Facebook or Twitter? Looking around the room, you can see the amount of action that's happened on social networking is amazing. And that shift in the way that people are using the internet itself also can be seen in changes in broad internet usage. Hot new applications like Facebook now with 400 million users and a company that says that they are at their highest growth rate ever. That is awesome. YouTube and video, new types of data types happening on the internet, and fundamental search. New ways of what people are doing on the internet. Also coupled with a critical change in our industry by not just what they're doing on the internet, but the way they are getting the information is changing. It's moving to smartphones. It's moving to next generation PCs. How many people here in the audience have with them a mobile device that can run apps? Raise your hand. Look around the room. Pretty incredible. This really to us means one thing, that we are moving from Cloud One, made famous by companies like Amazon and Google and eBay, in the simple applications that were point and click, managed and upgraded and updated centrally, and then provided to consumers all over the world, to Cloud 2. A new generation of application that is about new types of data and a new type of interaction between users known as social. Well, this is a catalyst like we've never seen for application development deployment, a catalyst for change inside the enterprise itself. In 1999, when I started Salesforce.com, I asked myself a simple question. Why is it that all enterprise software is not like Amazon? Why wasn't it that ease of use? But today at Salesforce.com, we ask a different question. We ask a simple question, why isn't all enterprise software like Facebook? It is the compelling app today on the net. The paradigm has shifted again. We have to deliver a next generation of code. That's why we believe there is an imperative for developers all over the world to start building this next generation of application. You know, when we started our company in 2000, it was about Amazon.com. It was about the tab-based interface, which was actually a breakthrough at that point. It was about pulling information. It was about clicking. It was about the desktop. It was about having a fixed location. And that location was not known, and it was primarily about a Windows or a Macintosh. But today, the world has changed. We look at things like Facebook. We look at feeds. We look at profiles. We look at push, not pull. We look at touching, not clicking. We're looking at smartphones and tablets and mobile. And we look at our location being known or aware. And we're working in new types of technology like Cocoa and HTML5 with next generations of user interfaces. It's a new type of application. It's a new internet. And it's a fundamental, simple point that in our industry, people are always overestimating what you can do in a year and underestimating what you can do in a decade. When I did this slide, to make that point, I asked my marketing team to put George Bush on the left and President Obama on the right to really show the change that can happen in a decade. Unfortunately, I have very little power in my own company, and I was voted off the island. And you can see I did not get George Bush on the left, and I only got one hand on the right. So, the point is simple. Things change. Things move forward. And the way that we've moved our own technology forward at Salesforce is with a whole new architecture, a whole new capability to enable this capability. Built on our multi-tenant shared kernel, built on a high-level cloud infrastructure, offering the reliability, availability, security that our customers demand, built on an application development framework known as Force.com that lets you build these next generation of apps, and with our new Chatter social platform that lets developers build applications for the enterprise that have the same features and functions as Facebook, but deeply integrated with enterprise software, security, and applications. And that's what we've been working on at Salesforce, delivering our Service Cloud, our Sales Cloud, and our Collaboration Cloud and platform. and our Force.com custom cloud capability. We have a vision, like many of you here, that this next generation of applications is ready to come forward. And when we see a huge new device come forward and have a huge success, like the iPad over the last few weeks, how many people here own an iPad? Raise your hands. Pretty incredible. That we know that developers need to start changing how they're building code, and we want to build technology that enables them to be more successful. That's why we've been working on Force.com, which gives productivity levels of 5 times the speed at half the cost. And while major customers around the world have delivered huge applications for their enterprise using this new, exciting capability. These Cloud 2 apps are expected in every app by every user. No longer are you, as an application developer, able to build an app and not deliver the feeds, the touch, the tablet capability, the push, the location awareness, the mobility. You need to deliver Cloud 2. We recognize that at Salesforce. But the question is, how can today's Java developers build the next generation of these apps in the cloud? Paul and I recognize together, and Paul mentioned this, that enterprises build apps in Java. It's the #1 development language in the enterprise. It has over 6 million developers who know Java. It has transformed our industry, and it has brought the enterprise into the internet. But enterprise Java developers don't have a clear path to the cloud. Yes, they've got a great language. Yes, they've got the scalability. Yes, they've got the availability. But can they deliver these next-generation Cloud 2 apps? Are they enabled and empowered and energized and motivated and excited to deliver the next generation of Cloud 2? Or are they blocked? Is there a gap between where Java is and where that cloud is and where the cloud computing is going? That's why Paul and I have been having these discussions over the past year, because we believe that this gap must be filled, that it's an imperative, as important as Facebook itself, so that we can deliver those Java developers to the cloud. And that's why VMware and Salesforce.com are coming together, because we believe strongly that it is time to deliver the next generation of application development and deployment capabilities. No other 2 companies can deliver as complete a solution for application developers in the development of these next generation applications than Salesforce.com and VMware. It's a natural path. It's a natural fit, and it's a natural partnership. If you look at VMware, the power is in many, many aspects of their technology. It's in the Java framework, as Paul mentioned, the tremendous power of SpringSource. It's millions of developers who know and use SpringSource and rely on it as the trusted Java development environment, the best Java development environment in the world today. They're seeing greater levels of productivity and success in their own app development with SpringSource than any other technology. Amazing achievement. Spectacular and brilliant acquisition, I would say, by Paul, because he recognized that is a critical component for the future. Coupled with vSphere virtualization, of course, the very founding of VMware, the initial code written and designed by the founders of VMware have turned into vSphere virtualization, which dominates the market with the best virtualization technology that enterprises rely on every day. The most important and most successful enterprises in the world use vSphere virtualization and VMware. They rely on it to move their infrastructure forward, to evolve it to the next generation of cloud computing and the private cloud. And it's coupled now, as Paul mentioned, with vCloud technology, which gives the provisioning, configuration, and management that these enterprises need to deliver their next generation cloud computing environments. Who else could build this but VMware? Who else is prepared to deliver the virtualization capability and the Java environment besides Paul? I don't know. There is no one else who has the vision and delivered it over the last decade than this company. And when you take this technology and you couple it with what we've been working on for the last decade, Force.com, with our infrastructure, with our development platform, Force.com, with our chatter collaboration services, and our killer apps, Service Cloud 2 and Sales Cloud 2, our collaboration cloud, and our fundamental Force.com application development technology, the two together give you a punch that changed the industry. The result is VMforce, the trusted cloud for enterprise Java developers. The trusted cloud for enterprise Java developers is VMforce because it brings together the best of VMware and the best of Salesforce.com. It is the best of both worlds. When you look at the fundamental architecture of VMforce, you will see how Force.com is fundamentally extended with VMware's technology. And now, Java runs on Force.com. That is really powerful. And Java runs in the cloud. And not just in the cloud, but at the enterprise level, with the security, the reliability, the availability, the scalability that developers need to be successful. This is a transformational point. And we believe that everyone will love VMforce. Force.com developers are going to love VMforce because they can now use Java for the first time. Force.com developers can incorporate Java into their apps. They can extend Force.com fully with Java. And Java developers will love VMforce because it means they're going to be able to easily write and deploy enterprise-quality apps into the cloud 5 times faster and at half the cost of traditional environments. And CIOs will love it because it's trusted by 2 of the industry leaders. It's open and it is complete. This is the vision, to take these 6 million Java developers and transform them through VMforce to deliver the next generation of Cloud 2 apps, where we all need to get to so that we can all build the next generation of capabilities. And now, please welcome to the stage to show us this great new capability, Rod Johnson, the General Manager of the SpringSource division of VMware and my co-founder of Salesforce, Parker Harris. Rod?
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome. Parker?
Thank you, Mark.
Great job.
I'll take that. All right, I'd like to think I could explain that better than Mark, but he's hard to beat. So, Rod, I couldn't be more excited about VMforce and what the 2 of us and our teams are bringing to the table. Mark explained it very well, but we're going to show you what Mark just explained to you. We're going to show you local development in the Spring framework. And then we're going to show you moving those applications into the cloud and then tapping in not only to the Force.com platform, but also things like chatter and higher level services that we have on our platform.
I think there's a lot of points that Mark and Paul made that we'll be coming back to. So, for example, Paul's point about having a vision is great, but you have to be able to get there. And I think we'll help people understand how we have a roadmap here.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the roadmap right here. We're going to take you through 3 demonstrations today. We're going to start with something really simple. For the developers out there, it's basically a Hello World type application, except this is Hello Cloud because we're in the cloud. Then we're going to take a reference application for the Spring community, which is a real solid application called Spring Travel. And we're going to show you that moving into the cloud and running within the cloud. And then we're going to show you something really special where we're going to add something to Spring to make it even better, or to the Spring Travel application. So with that, let's go over to the IDE, to the SpringSource. Oh, sorry, we're going to the back end. Sorry about that. All right, let's log into the back end, and let's just show you. This is the console on Force.com, where Force.com developers are going, and this is where they're managing their applications. So you can create applications on Force.com, so they're the apps. You can create data model in there. You can go and you can develop. So there is some coding within Force.com. But you know what? My community kept asking, how do I write code in Java? How do I reference all of those great Java libraries out there? I didn't have an answer until today, until Rod came and partnered with me. And so we have that. We're going to show that to you. And so we have email services on and on. But there's also deploy. Deploying applications is very easy with Force.com, but there's something new here, and it's called VMforce for Java. That is where you manage these applications on VMforce. So let's click through that, and we have a nice welcome message here. There's a dashboard. You can watch all of your applications running in the cloud on VMforce through this console. You can see the list of applications if you click here. We've got a sample application running right now. By the end of this, we're going to have 4 full applications running. The sample one's running right now. You can see when they were created, the status. You can take some actions on them. But you know what? Let's not just watch this console. That's not very interesting. Let's go build our first very simple application. So with that, let's go back to the IDE. And this is really where your comfort zone comes in. I was in my happy place there with Force.com. But now we're in the IDE with SpringSource, and this is what all the Spring developers know and love. So Rod, maybe you can introduce this to the crowd here.
Thanks, Parker. So this is SpringSource Tool Suite, which we often refer to as STS. This is a free development environment, or IDE, from the SpringSource division of VMware, and it's the best place to develop Spring applications. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate just how easy it is to create and deploy cloud applications to VMforce. So you're able to use the familiar skill set that millions of developers already have, the familiar Java and Spring skill set. So for example, if we wanted to create a new application using SpringSource Tool Suite, this is extremely easy. So there's a number of wizards in SpringSource Tool Suite. So for example, we can simply create a new application using what we call Spring template wizards. So here there's a choice of templates that we can choose. And what we'll be showing today is a Spring MVC web project. So the Spring MVC Model View Controller web framework uses a very familiar architectural pattern for building web applications, familiar to the Spring developer base.
So there are 2 million developers. This is just obvious to them. They come in and like, oh yeah, it's a Spring MVC, ready to go.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So what we're going to do is, initially we were actually going to run the wizard, create an application and deploy it. But in the interest of time, we're going to work with an application that we previously created with the wizard and have already done a little customization to. Okay. So what we have here is a regular Spring layout of a new project. So there is nothing here that is cloud specific. There's nothing here that is VMforce specific. We have pretty much a vanilla Spring MVC application. Probably worth at this point taking a step back and reflecting on why developers choose Spring. Developers choose Spring because it simplifies their applications. We heard a lot from Mark and Paul about simplifying IT. There is an immense problem in terms of how people go about traditionally developing and then deploying applications to, the kind of quagmire of servers that they have to provision in the enterprise.
Yeah, I think we share that similar value because Force.com is all about simplicity and it just shouldn't be that hard.
So what we've done in Spring is we've dramatically simplified the development and programming model part of the equation. So what we've done is provided some very powerful and portable abstractions that simplify application code and decouple it from its environment. So for example, this decouples the business logic in the applications from particular Java enterprise servers that organizations deploy their applications to. These powerful abstractions in Spring with the coming of cloud are more important than ever before, because it means we can abstract away from the fact that you're deploying on a ugly, traditional old enterprise Java server, or that you're deploying in a new cloud world of simpler IT. So, that portability is a point that I think is very important. It's important to the values behind VMforce, portability and openness. And for me personally, I'm excited about it because it's a continuation of the Spring story. Okay, so back to our Spring MVC application. We have here an application that uses a familiar skill set. An MVC application has a concept called a controller. So a controller is the Java class that will handle incoming requests. So by default, the SpringSource Tool Suite wizard creates something called Welcome Controller. This allows us to invoke some Java code that can perform custom operations. That Java code, in turn, produces results that are typically displayed in HTML form using something called a JSP, Java Server Page. So here you can see the simple default JSP that just says, congratulations, you're running Spring. So what we're going to do now is get into the world of real data. So this application and this welcome page gets a lot more interesting when we actually access some data.
Yeah.
So for example, if we had somewhere to store data, somewhere perhaps we already had valuable enterprise data, we could display it. Do you know anywhere,
Rod, I have
Parker?
just that place for you. It's called force.com, in case you hadn't heard about it. So with VMforce, it's amazing because as you're looking at the screen here, you see some Java objects there. Those Java objects are in the Spring framework. But what those are mappings to objects in the force.com database. Our customers are already tracking over 1 billion contacts in our system. We have a very large database. That's what we're very, very good at. And yet those objects are now, that data is now available in Spring with this contact, case. And it doesn't have to be the standard data model in Salesforce.com. Of course, you could create anything. But we've already provided you a starting point because that's the ease of use of the Spring framework. We want to make it really, really easy to connect those two platforms with VMforce.
Absolutely. So what we have here is what's known as a POJO, plain old Java object. This is a Java object that contains some of the contact information that you will find in force.com. Applications that are deployed to VMforce can define their own data, and they can also leverage the valuable existing data that folk already have in force.com. So what we've done here is use the Java Persistence API, JPA, mapping technology to map our POJOs to persistent data. And we've got a layer of Spring and Salesforce.com goodness that actually bridges that gap and makes it largely transparent. There is nothing in this controller. There is nothing in that contacts object that is unique or proprietary. It is using very familiar skills, open source, open standards.
So we're going to write some open code to connect those two platforms and grab some contacts from the force.com database.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we have here is a Spring MVC controller. It uses a technology provided in Spring called dependency injection that enables it to be very, very easily configured. We have something called an entity manager, which is a Java Persistence API concept that enables us to query for persistent objects.
And that's a standard and open API.
That is a standard API. There is nothing here that is going to be unfamiliar to a Spring or Enterprise Java developer. So what we're doing is actually creating a query. And this query is going to query for our contacts. So what we're going to do is make this application more interesting by actually querying for data that's already in force.com.
So it's as simple as that. Any Java developer who knows Spring could talk to the force.com database without learning anything new.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And I mean, I'm personally excited about this because for my developer audience, you know, this makes them heroes. This makes them more valuable to their organizations because they can now get at this additional valuable enterprise data.
Well, let's run this application. So how do we run this application, or how would a typical Spring developer run it?
Okay, so typically what we have in the SpringSource tool suite, or generally when you're developing Spring applications, is you deploy to a server. A server is likely to be something that's sitting on your desktop or perhaps also sitting outside and behind your enterprise firewall. In SpringSource tool suite, there are a choice of servers. So, for example, various legacy servers.
So you could go to IBM and buy some servers.
Absolutely.
And put them inside your firewall and get some people to run those and plug them in and maybe get an extra server to back it up, and you could do all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can start the process now. We'll get the purchase order, then we can start the installation and download. But what we've done is, in the context of VMforce, we've created a new type of server. And it's within this same very familiar Eclipse SpringSource tool suite abstraction. So when we configure this server, we need to log into the VMforce cloud with our credentials. Actually, we're using your credentials.
Yep.
I'll make a note of your password.
Right.
And Now we have the VMforce cloud that appears just like any other server.
Yeah.
Deploying to that cloud simply involves dragging and dropping. So we can literally drag that application that we created, drop it onto the VMforce cloud, and start it.
So that's amazing. So what just happened is you took that code that you wrote locally on this machine, and we just moved it into the cloud, and now it's tapping into the entire Force.com platform with everything that it provides, the redundancy, reliability, disaster recovery, all the manageability of that you don't have to worry about, and you just did that with a drag and drop.
Absolutely. You preserve the values of productivity that you get with Spring in our development environment. Now you've got a secure, robust, elastic place to deploy.
So let's move over to the console again, and let's look at that application. Now we're looking at the console. We have that sample application. If we refresh, you're going to see the new application, Hello Cloud, is now running. So let's take a look at that application. Okay, we're going to click through in the console. And obviously, you can view all the details of that specific application. You can manage it here with this console. But we're going to click through, and we're going to show you that this is live. So in fact, we did have a bug there. It looks like things are not working on that demo. But we do real demos here at Salesforce.com and with VMware. And there it is working. So there is a proof in the pudding that this is real code running in the cloud. These are contacts that are coming from a Force.com database, being pulled in the cloud into that Java code that's also running in the cloud, being displayed in a web page that we're looking at here. And this could be your contact data as a Force.com customer or as a VMforce customer.
Absolutely. So not only did we make that deployment experience very familiar and simple, we used a familiar skill set, we got away from that nightmare of server provisioning, and we showed we could access existing valuable data.
Great, fantastic. All right, simple demo. Let's move on and look at a real application. So let's go back to the IDE. And there's an application called Spring Travel. And I think every developer, I've just learned about it in the past month, but I think every developer that's a Spring developer knows it. It's a reference application that's a real solid application, end-to-end, that is how you learn the Spring platform. So Rod, why don't you walk us through this application, and then let's get it running and take a look.
Spring Travel is one of the samples we ship with Spring. One of the reasons it's interesting is it not only uses the core Spring framework, it also uses some of the related projects that truly make Spring a platform. So for example, we use Spring Security that can make it really easy to have fine-grained control over your application with minimal changes to your Java code. It uses Spring Webflow, which is a powerful technology for building conversational wizard-style applications. So as with most applications, it has its data model, or as we like to call it, domain model. The domain in this case is hotel booking. This application is an in-house application for creating corporate travel bookings and potentially managing the corporate travel policy. So monitoring where folk are booking, whether they're adhering to the expense policy. So we have a bunch of objects that represent the concepts in this domain. Like, for example, a booking that you will see when we run the web interface. Again, we've mapped this using JPA, and we've had to make some very modest changes to Spring configuration to take this existing application and target it to VMforce.
And that's the beauty of the Spring framework and VMforce is that it is an open platform, and so you can very easily plug it into the Force.com backend.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go through the familiar drag and drop experience to deploy this application to the VMforce cloud. But this is an application that defines its own custom data, causes that data to be held and maintained in VMforce.com, and shows how easy it is to modify a real existing enterprise application.
So let's go over to the console again and take a look at that application. We have our first two applications that we're looking at before. We're going to go and refresh the console. And the new Spring Travel application is right there. So let's click on that application, take a look at it. Again, all the attributes of that application are here, but let's click through the endpoint and let's actually look at this application running. So this application is a full application running in the cloud on VMforce. And so what is this? This is a, you know, an internal employee hotel booking service.
Yes, it enables us to search for locations, find hotels, potentially make bookings.
Yeah. Yeah, so for example, you know, I live close by, but let's say that I actually wanted to stay here for the night. I could book a hotel room here at the Palace Hotel. So let's go ahead and do that booking. And so this Java code is running. It's presenting these screens to you. It's letting you choose from various options, and then it's storing it in the Force.com database. Now, I'm going to ask for an ocean view here at the Palace Hotel. I don't know if that's possible, but we ask a lot here. And the minibar will be great, thank you. And a fake credit card number, even better. And we're going to move on, and we're going to proceed. Now, what just happened is that booking was then saved into the Force.com platform.
Yeah, a moment ago we saw the Java code behind that booking object, and that's exactly the data that's now persisted in Force.com.
Fantastic. All right, so let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's go back to the IDE, and I want to add something else to that application. So that's the reference application. Now we're going to add a little bit more Force.com goodness to this application, because we want to take all those Java developers that know this Spring application, the Spring Travel, we want to take them to Cloud 2. And so we're going to add a little Cloud 2 in here.
Okay, this is a great example of how Spring enables developers very easily using a familiar skill set to take advantage of capabilities in Force.com. So what we're doing here is we're revisiting the controller, and we're going to make some simple changes to this controller.
So there's a booking service. I think that was in the application.
The booking service is what goes and manages that persistent data.
Okay, and now we have something new here. It looks like it's called Chatter Service, which I've heard of Chatter. It's fantastic. So Spring is now consuming a new service, and it happens to be from Force.com.
Absolutely. Okay. There is Java code that is being exposed that surfaces that Force.com functionality. And one of the many things that Spring is very good at is making it really easy to get hold of services, to get hold of other objects that you need. So in this case, we need to get hold of the Chatter service to enhance our controller. We're using that add auto wired annotation that drives Spring dependency injection. So Spring automatically goes, finds the Chatter service and says, hey, you asked for a Chatter service, here it is. Don't worry about the mechanics of how I found it. Here it is, go use it.
Great, all right. Well, let's get this application going, Jesper, and you know, I want to see it actually running, and I want to see, you know, how all these developers, these 2 million developers, can now consume not only the power of that Force.com database, but also all these higher level services that, you know, like Chatter, to bring them into Cloud 2. So again, we're going to do the same process. We're going to drag this application over into the cloud. So that dragging action, you know, you didn't see it, but the code just moved into the cloud. Now let's go over to the console again, take a look at that application. So we had Spring Travel there. We're going to refresh again. We've got the 4th application running, which is Chatter Travel. Same base application, but we've added some new things to it. So let's go to that endpoint and take a look at what we added. Okay, looks very, very similar. You can see the Spring Travel and the bed. But up in the top right, we've got a new link called Analytics. Now, many of you who know the Force.com platform, it has pre-built analytics. You don't have to do anything. You get analytics as part of the platform. Very, very powerful analytics. And now all of these Java developers can tap into that without writing really any code at all. They're pulling those components into that SpringSource framework. And so in this example, you know, you can imagine someone running procurement at your company wants to know, are people booking ocean view rooms right and left and charging a ton of money at the company? I know Graham Smith, our CFO, is very concerned by things like that, and so we want to keep an eye on it and make sure we keep T&E really low. So you got the pre-built analytics. You don't have to worry about it. We have it for you.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, normally most Java developers are likely to be storing their data in a relational database. You have to go build that stuff, whereas this is real business value that you get for free.
Yeah, and there's so much else I want to show you. For example, we have a full-text search engine built into the platform. You get that as part of it. But the one thing I wanted to show you, there's a little picture there
That's the one that's a bit Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, happens to be me. Yeah, last night there was a lot of teasing. I had very little control over that picture. But let's click through. That picture, looks familiar to those of you who know Facebook. This is that's me looking very, very serious. So this looks a lot like Facebook, and this is what we refer to as chatter, and we really see it as transforming where we're going, and we're really going where Mark was showing to Cloud 2, which is about real time, it's about collaboration, it's about mobile. So I've got my picture here. Now let's go and just enter a little message here. This is a status update, and so I'm broadcasting. This is internal to my company. I'm broadcasting out to people who might be interested that I'm going to New York City for a conference, and I want a little advice on what hotel I should stay at that would be approved by our CFO. And so I typed in that message. Now, who's going to see that message? I have followers here. They're people that are interested in me. I don't know why, but they're following me, and they want to know what's going on. And so Rod is there, and he's following me. I'm also following people. Not only am I following people and interested in other people and other colleagues in my company, I'm also following data. I'm following this flight that I'm going to be on. I want to know if it gets delayed. I'm following documents, this expense policy. I want to know when the expense policy gets updated. That's what Chatter is all about. And now this is available to all those Java developers as part of VMforce. So I broadcast that message. Now, where do these messages appear? Let's go back to the home page and go back and let's look. There is a whole feed on my home page. So let's open up that where you say Show Chatter. And you can see there's the goofy picture of me saying I'm heading out to New York City. Now you can see just below that the data has been quote-unquote tweeting or chattering. The data is talking as well. So I booked that hotel room at the Palace Hotel. The travel policy has been updated. It's talking. And so you're getting connected to your whole company. And that's what we're adding into VMforce. Now, let's go back up. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I meant up the screen. Yeah. So, not the IDE. So we're going to go, one of the amazing things about Cloud 2 that I love is that Cloud 2 should be available everywhere. And you saw some of those stats that Mark showed you. Laptops and desktops are starting to give way to those mobile phones that all of you have that run those applications, or even the iPad. I raised my hand that I have one. I did make the mistake of ordering the 3GS. I don't have it yet. It's coming. But this same application is available on an iPad. And so here we have it running on the iPad. We've got Rod here.
I actually do have an iPad. So
you
this
do?
is realistic.
All right. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk later. I could trade with you. So here's Rod, and he sees my message. He's following me. Okay? And he sees my message that I'm heading out to New York City, and so Rod's going to help me out, and he can go and comment on my post, and he can put in a little message there saying, I've got some advice for you.
Okay.
Okay? And so let's see, what did you say there? You said I should stay at the Hudson. Great bar, and I'm not sure what you think of me, but, but you're probably right. Nice bar would be nice when I head over to New York. So he's going to post that, and then I get it. And that could be anyone in your company. Now, when that happens, you'll look on the left-hand side, because this is on all devices, it's real time. That message gets updated back to me in real time. I saw that right away, okay, because I get that help. And this happens in my company today. We have Chatter turned on. Now it's available to all these Java developers. I couldn't be more excited with what's possible now with VMforce. With the two companies together, this is just the beginning. And Rod, maybe you can say a few words, about your community and what you think.
Thanks, Parker. One of the reasons I'm very excited about this is because we do take portability very seriously with Spring. And really, we're on a mission to ensure that if you want to go to cloud as a developer, Spring is the way to do that. Spring will give you the best experience. And so when I look at the fact that you can leverage your familiar Spring skill set and you can get the extremely compelling experience of VMforce and Force.com, that is really exciting. And I think the next few months are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So thank you all. I hope you got a better feel for what we're talking about. And with that, we'll hand it back to our MCs. Thank you.
Fantastic. Really want to just thank the guys for doing that demo. And can you bring that Elmo back up for just a second? Can you bring the Elmo back up? Maybe. Oh, great. You know, I think when you look at this kind of next generation of application running on the web, running on the iPad, and also running even in Cocoa on the iPhone, and you look at the speed, you look at kind of the security built in, the reliability, the scalability, that I think is what every developer is trying to get to right now. And that's why I'm so excited about VMforce.
Yeah, I think we're going to unleash an incredible amount of creativity and productivity. I know, you know, the thing that keeps you and I in the fight after all these years is just the privilege of working with such bright, creative, motivated people. And I think we just saw an incredible demonstration of what can happen when you get people like that together and unleash them.
Absolutely.
But it's really going to translate into great customer value.
Absolutely. And so we thought, you know, we love talking to each other, but we should probably see what a customer thinks. So go back to the slides here. And I'd just like to welcome up on the stage one of the really great CIOs in our industry. Dave Smoley is here, the CIO of Flextronics. Please welcome him. Dave, come up on stage. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
Hi, Dave. Great to
See
have
you
you
again. Yeah, thanks.
Step right here in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Enjoy a VMware Salesforce sandwich.
We've each got a hand in each pocket, each of your pockets.
No comments.
No comments.
So Dave, you've been a Salesforce customer, you've been a VMware customer, you've had experience on Force.com, you've even built apps on Force.com, you've built apps with Spring. How do you see all this coming together?
Well, this is really exciting because I think it does begin to take the platform as a service to the next step. We've had tremendous success with VMware and Salesforce. You guys are an important part of our IT strategy and really an important part of our IT success. And so from the cloud, and in particular from your tools, we've gained tremendous speed, agility, scalability, and cost reduction. We pride ourselves at Flextronics at being low cost and effective. And I think the platforms that you guys, that we have today have given us that, and coming together like this gets me really excited because I think platform as a service has tremendous potential, and making that more open and giving us the ability to take advantage of the existing investment we've made in Java is a good thing for us.
I think it's great to hear that, and you know, what we're trying to do obviously is to leverage that investment that you have and allow you to apply that not just to cost reduction but to increased value down the road so that you can, you know, become more competitive in your own industry.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I think with the cloud, I mean, we've made big investments over the last couple of years in software as a service. You're a key part of that. And, you know, when I look at the way we're able to react quickly to customer needs, to business demands, and to do that in a very low-cost manner, it's very compelling. And so I think we've been experimenting with platform as a service. Force is really impressive in terms of the speed with which developers are able to deliver apps and reuse objects and things like that. And so to take that and then bring in a whole another group of developers is going to be huge. Should be really big for us. Yeah.
Dave, where do you see this going? What do you think the next thing is that we should be working on, and what's the next step here?
You know, I just think continue to push. You guys are the innovators in this field. I think you're setting the pace for your competitors and for your other companies that you collaborate with. As a CIO, I think you know, cloud is overused, overhyped these days. There's a lot of talk, and I think what I like about what you're doing is you're delivering the results. So, you know, we can talk about it till the cows come home, but when you begin to deliver usable tools and push into kind of the future, then that's what I'd like to see. So I want to see you guys continue to drive the openness, continue to make it easier. I mean, the ability to take tools. We've got a great tool, for example, called line monitoring system. So in a global complex company like Flextronics, we have 130 factories in 30 countries around the world. One of the things that's really important to us is how effective and efficient is our equipment. When we invest in $1 million machines, we want them to be up and running as much as possible. And we have a Java app that we have deployed across several sites, and we're rapidly trying to get it around the world, right? Today, if I put that into a factory, I've got to put servers in, I've got my IT guys have to build it out, and it takes time. To be able to put that on a platform like Force and would give me tremendous speed and tremendous scalability. And so I think that that's how we're going to use tools like this. And the more we can do that, the greater the ability to move things off of Force and into Force. That's a good thing.
Outstanding. Dave, thanks so much for being here.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Well, we're very excited to start a developer preview later this year, which you'll be able to find out more at VMforce.com. Developers can also go to developers.force.com or the www.force.com homepage, as well as the VMware homepage to get more information on all the tools and all the capability that you saw earlier today. Paul?
I just wanted to extend my thanks to everyone here today for coming, and we're obviously very excited, and we think we can do a lot of great things together.
Well, we're also really excited, and we know the future looks even brighter, and I think that Dave really illuminated it by adding Java and the Java Cloud and Force.com and bringing them together. We're really enabling the next generation of capability and the next generation of apps, making things easier to use, lower cost, increasing productivity, and as you said, the creativity of developers. So it's just an extremely exciting
and we do have a representative set of Salesforce and VMware folks here sitting at the tables with you. They'll be around afterwards. I encourage you to follow up with them and ask any questions that you might have.
Thanks very much. And for those of you who are online, thank you very much for joining us. And thanks for everybody here.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.